Good evening, family. Duro Bond, Motivi Media, another motivational moment. Last time I checked in with y'all, I was just well, if this your first time checking in with me, look, I'm just out here trying to drop some jewels on, where I went wrong, all the things that took place in my life, just trying to share with somebody because I believe somebody can learn from it. Somebody can sharpen themselves off from where I was dull, and choices I had. I went the other way, and just kept bumping my head, and eventually I got it right. And so I'm telling these stories to get to the point to where I got it right, and then when I get to the point to where I got it right, I can show you all the things I'm steady doing right and the moves, and just some things to keep somebody sharp, because in addition to where I went wrong, I also got it right. So if somebody on the wrong path, or they find themselves in a jam, and then they trying to look to see like, man, how can I get myself out this jam? I got to rebuild. I got to start over. Man, I done started over so many times, and not to say I'm on no pedestal or nothing like that, but I'm doing all right. So when I last left off in my little journey, I was talking about where I went wrong. And now I'm talking about the choices I had and how I steady just kept, maneuvering in the wrong way. So my last video, I was talking about how I left my hometown of Peoria, Illinois, and I moved to Champaign. And my brother was out there. He was going to school. He's an Army dude. He was going to U of I. So that was the foundation. My ex-wife, you know what I'm saying? We had a daughter at the time. She was out there with her homegirl. She was going to school. Everybody was going to school doing right. And here I come, I really was trying to escape really just trying to escape everything that I had created back home. I was on some, getting a little bit of money on some gang banging, just a whole bunch of mess. And so when I come to Champaign, I come down there, and like I said, my brother was on campus. I went and took one of his little extra IDs, school IDs. I'm down there playing like I'm on campus. I got the book bag, the whole nine. But I ain't on nothing but being me. And you know what I'm saying? The change that I could have did could have happened down there, but it didn't. It didn't, because every time it looked like I was going to change, I just ran right back to the same old thing. And so I went down there. I was down there like 20, 21. And at the time I had one daughter, ex-wife, he ended up getting pregnant about 2 years in. But when I was down there, I got a job at the Park District. They taught me how to mow lawns, and that'll be something that's that point is something vital that I pick back up on later in life, on knowing what to do and how to do it. But from there, I also, worked at Kraft Foods. I was dabbling in the streets. A couple of my homeboys came down. We was finna make a name for ourselves. I'm glad we didn't take that route, because it probably would have got ugly, for us to try to make a name for ourselves out there. So we was out there chilling. And lo and behold, I had a good job at Kraft Foods. I also worked at a cola place, and I don't want to mention their name because I kind of did them dirty. Funny little story about that is that they ended up giving me a job, and I started off in the warehouse. I went from the warehouse to merchandising. Merchandise is when you go in the store and you're moving the stuff around, this and that. And I always had a whip, no matter what my current situation was or whatever it was going to be. I always had a whip. And so I had this whip. I'm coming to work, they just assume I got license, which anybody probably would assume, that the person driving got license. So next thing you know, they done gave me their company vehicle. I'm taking it home on the weekend so I can go merchandise at the stores. And long story short, they was trying to prepare me for a route because I went from merchandising to being like a helper in the truck, and this guy showing me the route all on campus, you know what I mean? Nothing I was even interested in. I was just moving around, I was young and dumb, and so anyway, come to find out, they trying to prepare me for this route to take over a driving route, and I guess they run my information, and I ain't even got no L's. And then so they called themselves just cutting me back on hours, because it was back then, it was like they was just calling me on the phone, telling me what day to come and this and that. We got these hours for you, because I really came out the warehouse. And long story short, they wasn't calling me for work. And then so one of the dudes I work with said, "Hey man, you coming to the Christmas party?" I said, "No." He said, "Man, they supposed to be giving out checks." I said, "I ain't heard nothing about no Christmas parties." "Yeah, they supposed to be giving out checks." I got dressed up. Wife was like, "You want me to come?" I said, "Nah, because it's going to be kind of awkward." You know what I'm saying? She like, "Why?" I said, "Because I think they done fired me." I said, "But I'm going to the Christmas party." Went to the Christmas party. Everybody getting their check. President or whoever, the main guy passing out the check, he looking like, "Who is this guy?" You know what I mean? He had to write me a check out of his wallet. You know what I mean? Just to save face at the little banquet, little party or whatever. But hey, I got mine out of it. But back to all that happened and what transpired me leaving Champaign is, like I said, I had a job at Kraft, and it was third shift, and it was a sweet thing. But initially I was trying to get on second, and they was like, "Man, you hired in on this shift, this is where you're going to be at." I was in the distribution part of it, moving forklifts, moving pallets around, all of that. It was sweet. We was working 612s. I'm a young guy, you know what I mean? Getting so much money, you know what I'm saying, legally at the job, I ain't even had time to cash a check. When I did get off work, I'm running back and forth to Peoria, trying to hang out in the club and portraying a role that I really ain't eating like that. I'm really eating up off of the job, But I got the whip and everything that looked right. I'm in the mall on Saturday when I'm off like everybody else, dressing like the mannequin, you know what I mean? Fresh this, fresh that. And long story short, I was still dibbling and dabbling. So I run back to Peoria, get a little, get a little this, get a little that. And anyway, working third shift, I come there one day and try to make it back, and I ain't really slept. Man, got bumped off. Yeah, got caught with some green. My first major felony. First felony, and the job, I end up by getting me a lawyer, this and that, and the job, Kraft in Champaign, was gonna help me fight and beat the case. They just wanted me to, stand tall on them. Stand tall with them, and I didn't. I was trying to get fired. Even in the midst of all of what I had going on, I was trying to get fired. I had my second daughter on the way. Wifey had moved back to Peoria. She found her a little crib, So I'm like, man, I got money stacked up. I'm finna go back to the crib and get back in the streets. And that's what it was. And that's what I did. When I had an opportunity as a young man, looking back, I would have been 25, 30 years in. You know what I mean? A whole nother lifestyle that I couldn't even envision or imagine. I would have been set, content, because I was getting that kind of change at 21. I could only imagine what it's like, if I'd have just stuck around. Because, the wages is different, times is different. And anyway, I missed that opportunity. And I'm not here to spend too much time on nothing negative, because I'm trying to get to the positive. I'm trying to get to the day, to the here, the now, so you can use these stories I want to be an example, a living testimony, to show somebody like, hey, you can turn the corner, you can turn the page. It ain't got to be like that. You know what I mean? So from there, I went back to the crib, got got a case, you know what I mean? End up doing some days in the county, end up getting some, some probation and all of that. Y'all gotta excuse me, I'm, trying to stay warm out here in the cold, you know what I mean? And trying to keep this truck from cutting off and cutting back on. But anyway, that's in the fast forward part. But I'm talking about the past, so we can get to the point to where, hey, you know what I mean? I screwed my head on right. This where I'm at. This what I'm on, and show you how I got to this point. Help somebody who maybe think, man, I done made all these mistakes. Ain't no way, but it is a way. Anyway, back to where I was at that stage of my life. I went back home and had like a 2-3 year run out there in the streets. Anybody who probably saw me or remembered from that time probably thought, oh, that was a sweet situation. You know what I'm saying? It looked like you was eating. Man, I was miserable. You know what I mean? I ain't like the lifestyle I was living. Couldn't really. I was living it though, because I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be. I just was chasing something with no end in mind. And one of the biggest mistakes that we make as people is that we don't have no goals. Because I didn't have no goals back then. I just wanted me an old school, throw some gold things on it with some Vogues and some beat and then paint, switch colors and and holler at all the females. And that's all. And I already had one, and you know what I mean, 2 daughters and this and that. And that ain't stopped me. You know what I mean? I'm in the club. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, not defining who I am, just all type of stuff. You know what I mean? So, so that's what I did. A little 2-3 year run, and from there, I was trying to get up out of there because the walls was caving in. So, I decided, man, my homeboy and them, a bunch of people, probably about 10 people, was going to Alabama State, and I was around in a little circle. And I said, let me jump, let me roll out when they roll out. So I'm finna play like I'm finna go to school, And the whole time I had a whole nother plan, because they was going to Montgomery, Alabama, and Alabama State. And I was trying to set myself up to move to Birmingham. I ain't know nobody there. It just was another place. I might have visited or something. My mama from Alabama, she from a small town. I might have rolled through or whatever, but I didn't really have no real prospects on what I was going to do. I just knew I didn't want to go to jail. And the walls was caving in, you know what I mean? So what I did do and what I did know was that, hey, you got to get up out of here, you know what I mean? Because it's getting too close for comfort. So when they got ready to go to school, I left with them. One of my homeboys is driving my car. I'm driving the other whip. We get down there. We get close to, Montgomery and Birmingham, probably about an hour and a half away from each other. You run up on Birmingham before you hit Montgomery coming from up north. And so I hit deuces like, hey, I'm out here in Birmingham, and I wouldn't try to make a way. Like I said, I thought I had it all lined up with all my little sister information and get out there and, I got the bread to move into the apartment, but they like, where where your sister at? Where the person that you using all this information? I'm like, oh, she coming in a week or two. They're like, oh, it ain't gonna work like that, dog. So there I was stuck, scratching my head. And so lo and behold, I end up down in Montgomery. I'm down there probably about 6-8 months. I don't know, I'm back and forth, Peoria, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And I could have changed when I went to Alabama because it was a change. And that's, if we're going to title this, that's what the title is, change. But see, change come like a noun. It's people, places, and things. You can't change one. You can't change two and hold on to one. You can't hold up. You can't change, you know what I'm saying? It just ain't going to work. Change, you got to change everything. And I never changed my state of mind. All I did was try to change locations. I was just trying to move around. I was trying to get away, and in the midst of that, during that time frame, I also tried to move down to Atlanta for a minute, you know, because when things didn't work out in Birmingham, I went to Atlanta for a minute. But I was spending so much money that I ain't even last down there about 30 days. I was clubbing and all that. I said, no, this ain't gonna work, because this gonna leave me speedballing back on some other stuff. So anyway, I ended up in Montgomery and was down there. Even though, you know, I got 2 kids back home, wifey, I end up meeting a little female. She was from Miami. She like, hey, man, you can have something, you know, if you want to get rid of that lifestyle, you know what I mean, you're gonna have to. So anyway, I was with her. She was a good girl, wasted her time, you know what I mean, because she was on something else that I wasn't on. I was just playing in the streets, you know what I mean, and played down there for a minute. I ain't gonna never mention nobody's name. Anybody who I'm talking about, they know who they is. And if you don't, that's good, because I'm just telling a story. I'm not here to point the finger at nobody other than myself. And I'm here to point the finger at myself so you can look and realize and say, hey, if he turned it around after all that nonsense he was through, oh man, I know I can do it too. And hopefully what it'll do, it'll scare somebody straight to where they don't even go down that path. You know what I mean? But from there, things didn't work out. I was on some roommate stuff. That didn't work out. You know what I mean? So I moved back. I moved to Birmingham. Me and my brother link up. He come down, get an apartment in his name. I moved to Birmingham. I'm chilling. I'm back and forth, Montgomery. I'm all through Alabama, back and forth to home. I ain't changed. Ain't nothing changed. Ain't nothing changed but the address. That's it. I ain't gonna even lie. You know. And lo and behold, while I'm down there in Alabama, like I said, I always had some issues with me driving or some tickets, failure to appear. Some petty about this cat and mouse that, you know, game that I was playing. I always had something going on. So I'm go back home, try to get my license together. I got to do some days to get my L's together, because all this time I'm coming back and forth. Sometimes on the plane, sometimes I'm driving, no L's. You know what I mean? Just nonsense. On these highways, nonsense. I don't even want to talk about it, everything else that's going on, but I ain't got no license, no insurance, no none of that. You know, I'm riding like I'm legit. Anyway, so come back home, do some days, 22, 25, something like that. I think they gave me 45. I do cut in half, 22, 22 and a half, whatever I did. I don't even recall. But did that, got my L's back. And on the way out the county, you know, we all getting released at the same time, basically. I meet this lady I used to, you know, mess with in the streets, you know what I'm saying, on some getting money type stuff. So she like, hey, I ain't seen you in a while, woo up the bam. We exchange numbers. I give her my number, you know, she said she gonna hit me. I said, okay, I'm gonna be in town for a couple of days. You know what I mean? Which was true. So I'm out. I'm fresh. I got my license back. Me and my boy, we out turning corners. You know, I'm trying to collect whatever little change while I'm out here. I'm moving around, you know what I mean? Lady hit me up. And you never see something till afterwards, you know what I mean? But long story short, she hit me up, spent a little $50, $100 with me. She tell me she gonna hit me later when she run up on this cat and, you know what I'm saying, run this little play or whatever. And she told me, be careful. And when you're in the streets and you hear, you know, a customer tell you be careful, that ain't how people in the streets really talk. You know what I mean? That's something somebody that loves you will tell you. And, yeah, that was her heart. That was her heart. That was her heart letting me know she was about to set me up later on. You know what I'm saying? And she did. She set me up for a little $200 play. I was on my way to her crib, and, you know what I mean? Me and my boy, we kicking it, riding, smoking, drinking. And, yeah, they pulled me over right before I got there. And, you know, it is what it is. Second case. You know what I mean? And I ain't even supposed to be out here like this, because I'm really cool. I'm supposed to be in Alabama somewhere, but here I am out here on the streets being greedy, out here chasing hundreds and 200s when I ain't even on nothing like that. But that's just how I always was, you know what I mean? I ain't care if it was 20, 200, a G, 500, 2 Gs, whatever you got, I want it, you know what I mean? Greedy, greedy. You know what I mean? And so now I got a second case, but I live all the way in Birmingham, and so now I got to fight this case, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it was an opportunity for me to get it right, but I never changed. And change is something, you know, change is constant. Change is constant. The weather gonna change tomorrow. You can change tomorrow. You can change for the better. You can change for the worse. You can go out here and do something smart. You can go out here and do something goofy. But change is constant. And as long as God is willing and see fit to give you breath, man, you got an opportunity to change. You know, with everything I'm going to say, I'm going to always go back to this right here. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You know what I'm saying? And the only factor that you can change is you, because you can't change nothing else. You can't get nobody else to change. You know, I had to learn that the hard way. I got kids. I got people I love. I got people I want to bring with me along the way. But you can't get nobody to change. The only thing you can change is yourself. How you think about things, how you react towards things, that's the only thing you can change. And change is inevitable. And if you refuse to change, then you're denying yourself. Because you're constantly changing. But if you keep going back to them same ways, you're missing out on the change. So here I was, and this ain't the, I had a time in Champaign to change. I had a chance to change in Alabama. A little later or tomorrow, another day, I'm going to tell you how I had a chance to change in Texas. Shoot, I could have changed right in Illinois. You know, but what I'm saying is, change got to come from within. And the first step in change is you have to have a reason for change. You got to see the error in your ways. And see, I wouldn't see the error in my ways, even after I caught this second case. So here I am, I done caught this case, and I'm down here in Birmingham, and I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, going to court. So the lawyer tell me, you know what I mean, hey, another slap on the wrist. You're going to do some days in the county. I'm going to get you some 7 to 7, which was, they called it intense probation. You're going to be on that for 6 months. And then you're going to give them people 30 months after you off the 6 months of intense probation. You can only come outside from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So boom, I shut everything down in Birmingham. Take some losses, furniture, stuff like that. I wasn't finna drag all the way back. You know, it is what it is. I don't even know what's going to happen after I come out the county and, you know what I mean, on this intense probation. You know, basically, I'm finna probably go back to mama crib. So what I'm finna drag all this furniture up the highway for? So there it was. Did some days in the county. Got out 7 to 7. That's when I can move around from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, cool. During this process of me getting out and in the county and all of that, wifey decide she's trying to get away from me, and I don't blame her. You know what I mean? Because ain't nothing good going on. You know, I'm doing whatever I want to do. You get what I'm saying? With, you know, and looking back, yeah, I mean, I can say it now. I wasn't man enough to see it and say it then, but, you know, with disregard to her feelings. So she decides she's moving to Dallas. I'm like, damn, you know, I'm hit the bottom. You know what I'm saying? A little whip, you know, I'm selling rims. I can't move around like I want to. You know, then I'm hotter than a firecracker. And so I'm on this 7 to 7 trying to rebuild. So it's kind of good I got to get rid of these rims and all this other stuff because I can't even move around like I want to. And so she gone. She take the kids. I still ain't seeing the error of my ways. I'm still trying to move around and rebuild. I'm just doing it different now. Probably about a month or two into she moving to Dallas, she come back with my two daughters, and she said, "Look, I need a little minute to get myself together. Why don't you take the girls?" I said, "Cool." She get them enrolled in school. Hey, I don't know if that was my energy or what, but everything changed after that, because now, I got these two daughters, these two sets of eyes looking at me, for McDonald's and KFC or whatever it is that they're trying to get, and, meals and doing their hair and fixing, putting on clothes. And, oh man, I got a boost of energy. It's on now. It's on. And so in addition to that, I'm taking my, it kind of gave me some, a stride, you know what I mean? Kind of like a schedule. And I'm taking my mama to work, you know what I mean? I'm dropping everybody off, moving around, doing what I can from 7 to 7, get everybody situated. I'm at the crib, making dinner, whatever, this and that. We transitioned from my mama crib to apartment, you know what I mean? Everything good. And then once about 10 o'clock hit, you know what I mean? I'm gone. I'm in the streets, you know what I mean? Using kids at my mama's crib, whatever. I ain't leaving them nowhere. But what I'm saying is, once the probation officer come through, they usually try to come through about 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. try to catch you slipping. They got a life too. I'm out, what I'm saying? I'm playing cat and mouse. I'm not outsmart you. You got a life. You got a home. You ain't finna be out here 1, 2 o'clock. I am though. I'm gonna be out here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? So, that's what I did. You know what I mean? And look up, I get off the intense probation. Wifey come back to get the kids. That's where my heart at. Because prior to me having kids, I just wanted to gangbang. Once I became a father, I was just a father. That's all I was. I'm a, protect, provide, still to this day. I just became a person of, where I got a career on me. And I'm 4 years into that. So all I ever been was a father. From the age of 17, I was 17, my first daughter came along. So I said all that to say, wifey come get the kids. And I knew she was going to, she said a couple months. It ended up being a little bit longer than that. When she came, she got a whip, you know what I mean? And she wanted me to help her drive down to Dallas. I just got off intense probation. I ain't been off of it maybe a month. And so I tell my mama, go by there and say, hey, kids gonna leave, they hug, kiss, and whatever. I said, Mama, run down here and help her drive. She said, boy, you might well come give me a hug and kiss too, because I ain't gonna see you no more. I said, where you said that? She said, you ain't finna leave them kids. I saw how you bonded with them. You ain't finna leave them. I said, no, I'll be right back. I'm on this probation. She's like, all right, we'll see. And Mama always know best. Because I went down to Dallas, 14-hour ride. They all sleep in the car. I get there, I turn on the radio. I'm trying to see what's popping, where the club's at. I get them to the house. I don't kick off my shoes or nothing. I might have, I probably wasn't there 20 minutes. I didn't take off nothing. I'm to the club. And wifey dude, I'm a street dude. I got to see what's popping, what's cracking, what's going on down here. I got to see where my kids laying their head at. I got to roll around the neighborhood. I got to see what's happening. I got to see where you got them at. So, end up, like Mama said, I ain't come back. You know what I mean? I was down there probably 3 years. And when I left home, I was on probation. I ain't got no business being out the state and all of this. So, my mama called me about a month after I'm down there, and it was too late by that time. I was knee deep. I hit the ground running. And so my mama called me, and she like, them people looking for you. Yeah, they said you need to be up here by Monday or it's going down. I said, oh, well, we'll see. And about another 3 weeks, a month go by. Now they towing my car that was in the back of my up against the garage. They towing your car. They had put a sticker on it, and I tried it. I say, hey, mama, I ain't tripping over that. I got a whole nother life going on down here. So that's what it was. Went down to Dallas, and I end with that, because that's a whole nother chapter. So with this chapter, basically, we're just talking about change. And as you listen to these stories, you'll see I had plenty of opportunities to change, but I never changed until, until I hit rock bottom, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to get to that. But I hope you don't have to go that route. I hope it don't take that much for you to realize that you need to change. I hope you can, maybe you hearing this, maybe you want to share this with a little crumb snatcher, a little rascal, somebody that a little neighbor, a little nephew, little cousin, son, whoever. Change. You got to see the need for change. You got to see the error in your ways. And then once you see the error in your ways, it still may take some time for you to change, because awareness is the first step. After that, it takes an action. So with that being said, if you out there and you need to change, be aware that you need to change, and then follow the steps of what it takes to push that change in your life. And as we continue on, I'm going to show you some of the steps. I'm going to show you some things that you could do, some small things, you know what I mean? Start a lawn service, you know what I mean? Start a little small business. Go get trades, different little trades. I'm going to be dropping all kind of jewels, and whether I'm not here for no likes or no subscribes or nothing, because if I wasn't talking to you, I'd be talking to myself. That's just what I do. I relive all of this stuff to motivate me and push me. And with that being said, Lord willing, He'll allow you to wake up tomorrow, or He woke you up today. He'll allow you to wake up tomorrow. It's an opportunity for change. And with that, I'm out. I'll holler at you next time.